My name is Bill Falloon, in case someone doesn't know who I am here. Bill Falloon with Life Extension Foundation. I tried to grab a bunch of people right before lunch to get them at a table, and I succeeded in getting most of the people I wanted to try to discuss some definitive ways to raise the money. Dave Kekich, you showed some numbers, many billions of dollars that we need to raise, and we need to kind of do that in a definitive way, and we're in a hurry. So we talked about some concepts, and the one that we concluded with is to raise money through a public offering, of stock, where we would essentially be an ETF, so to speak, an overall company that would fund possibly all of those companies that were listed and discussed today. We discussed putting together a small and credible board of directors to evaluate which companies really deserve the funding. We would pay for that funding, as was mentioned earlier, on a monthly basis. We wouldn't just be writing big checks. There would be milestones set up, so if the company did not meet milestones, funding would be cut off. But the idea is we need to raise this money fast, and all the concepts discussed, they all have merit. But what are we definitively going to do? One of the advantages of going public is it gets a lot of media exposure. So we would have, hopefully, a lot of coverage in the media that there's a company. I propose calling it the Manhattan Project Company or Immortality Inc. There's all kind of pros and cons to these names, and I'm not saying we have a good name picked yet, but if we were to have a company whose mission was to fund entrepreneurial scientists and other companies in a wide range of technologies, we might derive enough public interest and enough investor interest. And I mentioned we have our Life Extension magazine. It goes out to over 300,000 people every month. If we could advertise the existence of this company, we think we could raise a fair amount of money that way, in addition to all of the networking connections people in this room have. So in talking in definitive terms, I would like to discuss as much as we can the pros and cons of setting something up where people put investment capital in, looking for a very long-term return on the money, where we're not going to be promising any short-term situations, though we were told confidential, in a confidential way during this conference, but by one individual that he has a project that perhaps in 3.5 years could be generating some substantial revenue. With a relatively small amount of money being put in to make that happen. So there may be some short-term opportunities with age reversal technologies, but a lot of them are 10, 20 years down the road. But one of the fringe benefits of investing in this company would be access, early access to what is developed, what we feel is credible. We would make those therapies available in the Bahamas, where we have a number of connections with the doctors there. Clinics that would be able to offer those before the FDA approved them. So one of the incentives to put money into this is, of course, to support the objective, and that is keep yourself from dying, from aging. That's the number one objective of putting money into this company, is to achieve our objective. Another one is to maybe make some money down the road, maybe make a lot of money down the road. But the other, which might be more important than anything else, is gain access, early access to a technology that we develop in 3 years but won't be approved by the FDA in 10 years. But we fly down to Nassau and get that technology within a relatively short period of time. So that is something that I'd like to have everyone in this room discuss. Again, pros and cons, but it's definitive. It's something that's doable, where perhaps in 6 months we could have at least the initial funding to start making some payments to some of these scientists that we've heard talk this last 2 days about what they can do. And again, it doesn't have to be the whole lump sum, and it shouldn't be, actually.
There are advertisers in the magazine. And for instance, I know of 2 or 3 people that, would give $500,000 or so. And so if you gather together your first 5 million, then go after your public company, I think make a lot of sense, because there are people in your magazine and people that I know and people that other people know here who are motivated because they have their dream. So rather than just be our dream, it's their dream. And I think that's one way of doing it. And
you're talking about getting some angel funding initially for that initial round?
motivated people. I mean, I think the gentleman over here earlier today said if you're dealing with people who have a vested interest in the success of something, and there are a whole lot of people who can make a great deal of money outside of this, who are very, very willing to put in the seed money to make this grow. You have a very powerful thing in 300,000 people that are into the idea of life extension already. That should be 30 million. It should be 300 million. But the way to get from 300,000 to 30 to to a billion is getting that seed money. And I think the seed money can come from, I mean, I know real quick I could find some money for this. And I'm sure there are other 10 people in the room that could find just that original seed money, about $5 million.
Well, I concur. I think that there's enough net worth in this room to put the initial funds together with the objective of then promoting the company in a way that would raise the money. Now, Suzanne Summers is totally dedicated to everything we've discussed. I invited her here today. She's doing her annual cruise where she goes out and 2,000 of her fans go out with her for 7 days in the Caribbean, so she was not able to make it. But you mentioned the Facebook, and yes, she's very active on Facebook, and whatever we would ask her, I think, to put on Facebook, she would do that, and it would go out in a significant way to a lot of people. We at Life Extension do have a lot of celebrity members, and if we advertise and ask them to do certain things for us, I think they will do that for us.
Have you ever wrote an article in the magazine about what we're doing and ask for, not help, but sort of use the 300,000 subscribers?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I was going to set up a life extension hospital back in 1999 because, as we all know, their medical care is just horrific in this country, and we knew we could do a better job. And what I did is I wrote up essentially a conceptual article. I said, if we could accomplish this ahead of time, in other words, this is how the hospital would be run, what kind of contributions could we expect? I got commitments for $4 or $5 million from people. I was impressed with that. We just did not have the staff and the personnel to go forward with that, so I wrote them all a thank you letter saying we don't need your money because we're not going to go ahead with that project. And I ran an ad one time in Reason magazine to start a new country. And I got well over 200 letters from people, and the aggregate total from just that one little ad, which cost at that point about $150, was about $5 million. People wanted to put up that kind of money. So these concepts are accepted by maybe more people than we think, and people with money want to see it happen.
Well, especially with 300,000 subscribers, you have a community already built in.
We do. They're dedicated, and just the incentive of gaining access to these therapies. I have wealthy people call me who are members, and then they ask me, is there something my money can buy me beyond what you offer in your magazine? And I have to apologize and say, well, not much. Not much more than what we offer everybody else at this point. I wish there were.
But you could sell them access to them when they start coming on stream.
Once we start bringing these new technologies on stream, get them over in the Bahamas, and people can go over there and take advantage of them.
First in line. They'll pay for a spot.
First in line. I mean, if you need a heart transplant and someone, and that regenerative medicine is a really interesting opportunity. If we devise the organ bank and we have organs fast, that could really be a lifesaver.
Hi there. Just a quick. Oh.
We've explored this idea, and I think it's a great idea. And I apologize for my voice. I've spoken with securities attorneys about this, and the securities regulations are a landmine, but we can get around those. One big advantage you have is you have solicitation laws. But if you have your own membership, you can do things with your own membership that you can't do to the general public. So you can't advertise, for example, to the general public for investors, either public or private. You can advertise under certain conditions to your membership, and that is very powerful. So what goes along with that is to build and increase your membership, and we talked about some ways to do that, I mean, directly but indirectly today. Social media. I know that you were busy with your sale right now, and you're not really looking for new members for the next month or two. At least that's what I think. But I think a concerted push to build your membership up to 500,000, a million, that could really tap into a lot of.
We have an ongoing program to enroll new life extension members. We do have the Twitter and the Facebook going on, nowhere near as sophisticated as what Oliver was describing here earlier, but Oliver offered to help us out in that regard. Life extension has been growing every single year despite these difficult economic times. Our business is up, which is good news for what we're all trying to accomplish. People are prioritizing health over a lot of other areas where they could be spending their money. But Dave, we're doing everything we can to increase membership, and membership is at an all-time high right now. So we're doing well. We need to do a lot better, of course, but you're correct. We are a private association, and that means we can do things that others can't.